Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us again today with another edition of Reach the Unlimited. And I'm very excited to be with you here today and share with you a very, very special person. Yeah, I caught it this time. Uh, Crystal, I didn't ask you how you pronounce your last name, but her name is Crystal. I'll let her say her last name. And
Cockerham.
Cockerham, okay. And she is an amazing divine wisdom of the feminine parts of us that need to come out, the alchemist of, I want to talk to you about the alchemist because you're an alchemist, I think, when I was doing some reading on you of many different things. So,
Mhm.
but my first question to you is what keeps you reaching for your highest you?
Um, well, I'm one of those people who, like, if I were to win the biggest lottery jackpot ever, I'm not the person who would say, I'm just going to buy a big house and hang out. I'm the person who says, I'm going to travel the world and keep learning.
Love
Like,
that.
there's just more and more and more and more to experience. And so, um, in it is my belief, and I know not everybody shares it, I know many people do, but it's my belief that, once you stop searching and once you stop seeking, once you stop growing, you're kind of done, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
I want to do everything I can in this lifetime for me to reach my highest and truest potential so that my next incarnation is even better and
I
better
love
and
that. Yes,
better.
yes. But talk about that a little bit. And I am listening to you, but for some reason I'm not seeing the live on YouTube. I know we are on YouTube, but I'm not seeing it. So here, I think I want to make sure I get the chats and all that. So, okay. Hi, Sharon. Thanks for being here. Okay, so I'm on. So my question is, if I come back again, I don't want to. Can you talk a little more about what you're talking about that?
um, Soul contracts,
Mm-hmm.
those sacred contracts. So, my belief line, what I believe is that we have a soul that incarnates in many lifetimes,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a spirit that helps us with this body in this lifetime. So we are spirit and we are soul,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
so, each lifetime we come in, our soul decides that this is what I want to learn. This is what I want to heal. This is what I want to grow in this lifetime. Um, and if you don't do that, I don't know this for a fact, but it's my understanding that you're just going to keep coming back until you do. And
Mhm,
then you move on to the next thing.
mhm,
So, in my line of work, and I've trained in shamanic work,
mhm,
and with Native American roots,
mhm.
and also like a crystal shamanism um, thing. And soul retrievals are just that. When you heal something in the here and now, you're literally retrieving that piece of your soul that experienced that wounded pattern in other lifetimes, and
Right.
you're just bringing it, back to wholeness.
Well, talk a little bit about how you started your path down this road. What brought you to um, waking in the way that you did and the passion that you have? Because you're very busy. You do a lot of things and you're very passionate about it. What led you down that path?
Well, it's funny that you should say that, or you should ask that question. When I was in college, I went to college, it was probably 7 or 8 years after high school is when I went to college, because I had my kids right out of high school. Like, I was 20 when I had my first child. And when I went to college, I started waking up. Like, I only know this looking back, but I started waking up when I was in college.
Mhm.
And it was, what I was studying, and things were like just coming to life for me. And I was starting down this way, so to speak. And then I finished college, and I was teaching, and one of my daughters had gotten really sick,
Mm.
and I actually, this is what I wrote about in the Shine book, which
Mm-hmm.
was the first book that I was a co-author in.
Okay.
And so during that, so I had taught for a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and I was laid off because it wasn't the 9/11, but it was that crash after 9/11 that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my daughter had gotten sick, and literally my life was taking her to doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're when you go through something like that with your child, like literally your focus becomes willing them to live, and seeking those answers to help them through. And as a parent, you do everything you can, right? Well, it was about a year and a half after that, um, I I started working part-time, which led to a full-time job, and it wasn't in teaching
Mm-hmm.
because I had to walk away from that to focus on, my child. And I ran into, in this building, a life coach. And I'm like, what is a life coach? What do you do? Like this concept,
Yeah.
and so we struck up a really great conversation, and I started going to a wisdom group. He had a wisdom group. And it was during that time that literally it was like I just got so irritated one night because everybody always described me as being nice. And I want to be nice like Crystal. And I want to da 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 da. And I'm like, why does everybody keep calling me nice? I am so sick and tired of being called nice because I am so much more than nice,
Yeah. Yes.
And I mean, it just really triggered me. And later that night, literally, like I remember tossing and turning and going to sleep. And then all of a sudden, I woke up, and literally, I woke up. I probably cried for a couple of hours. And it was like, I woke up. And so then I was just on this turbo speed to catch up with myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so I went into the coaching certification. And right after that, I went into a personal piece of a 9-month journey, which was a shamanic piece of work for women.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I also went into crystal healing.
Mm-hmm.
I had already been studying a lot of energy with essential oils. So, like, everything was like I couldn't get enough. And
Yeah.
I make all these connections where things just don't stay compartmentalized, like I know how they kind of weave together, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, from there, I just kept more and more and more because I know there's more,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
there's more and there's more and there's more. And every piece that I collect in that journey really helps me at an incredibly powerful and deep level, not just for myself, but once I go through it, I have all of those tools that I can then help people who come to see me.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because I do believe that we're taken down the path that we're supposed to go, that we are going to learn and come to understanding in a way that we can serve others. That's the way that I feel like a lot of
Mhm.
us that take this path, we're really journeying. But you went into like describe to people that may not understand what an alchemist is and how you use that in your daily life and with your clients.
Oh, I love the word alchemy
Huh?
and alchemist. And no, I have never read the book. It's on my list. I don't own it yet. I will read the book because I know that question's coming. I
Yeah.
will read the book one of these days. um, so in my teaching days, I was
Yeah.
English and history. I taught English and history. And it's funny because, everybody gets stuck on these titles and these certifications. And I've always resisted the title of coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so not me.
Yeah.
Right. And yet I know coach people, but
Yeah.
it's just so not a title. And I really struggled with it. And Energy Alchemist came to be because, you know, I went through this whole book process and I can't remember the title of it, but a friend of mine lent it to me and it was amazing. I will find out the name of that book and put it in the comments
Okay.
because it was very powerful.
Yeah.
And what came from that was Spiritual Alchemist. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that lands so well. I love it, blah, blah, blah. And I was ready to really claim it for myself. And I found out that there's another woman out there who um, not only has claimed it for herself, but she has books and a program. And I'm like, man, well, no, I can't do it. And
Aw.
but Energy Alchemist for me is equal to that. And what that is really alchemy is taking one thing and transforming it
Mhm.
into another,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so that alchemical process, no matter what people come to see me for, is what I take them through.
Mhm.
And no matter what modality calls them to work with me, um, they get all of me. They don't get, if somebody says, I want to meet you on Zoom, blah, 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 they get all of me. I don't just use my coaching tools.
Right.
It's everything.
Right. Alchemist is a great word because it really is magic. It's turning something into something else is magic. And you're right. I'm like you. I have so many tools because when I started, I thought I was doing nutrition, and little did I know that was going to take me down all kinds of rabbit holes to where I'm at now. So you start with something and then but you're always developing and learning and adding to, which is an amazing. And you never know when you're going to use something. You never know.
Yeah, you don't. And um, I think my favorite piece to it is it doesn't matter if it comes from like one line of a tradition, like rooted in one geographical location or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love when I find what that is someplace else
Yes.
because it just helps you like shift that perspective just enough to where you get to understand it inside out and right side up and like all the different ways of looking at it. So
I
it's
just had
really
that
beautiful.
happen. I was working with a lady who had just lost her husband, and she was really, really still struggling with it. And just by talking with her, she literally said that it was like you took my head and just moved it so I could see it just ever so slightly in a different way, and it just opened up the whole understanding. And that's what we do. That's
Hmm.
how energy works. But talk to people about energy, because I know that I have all different kinds of people that watch this at different levels.
Hmm.
How do you look at the energy and how you're working with energy?
Um, I am um, a pretty powerful intuitive
Mm-hmm.
and a highly sensitive empath.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when I am working with somebody, it's not just me having that physical reality in the now
Mm-hmm.
conversation with that person. Like there's things going on between their guides and my guides, and information comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's almost like somebody can say something and it's like, oh, that's the thread. You think it's this thread, but it's this
Yeah.
thread. Let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. And then we get to see how it comes back together,
Right.
and then like, pull that root out of the ground, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
um, and get to the heart of the matter. Um, so for me, that's what the energy is. And then that's what I see. And I trust um, that what comes through is the flow. And for me, I literally follow the energy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and
Yeah.
I do that. And the transformational process, especially in shamanic tradition, isn't just in up here in ego and in your brain or the conditioned self or limiting beliefs. I'm just trying to think of all the names that are out there. Um, but really, when you're working with somebody energetically and in the shamanic process,
Mm-hmm.
you get to repattern at the cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
And that is powerful.
It is.
And
Because
it's not, I'm not repatterning them. They're repatterning themselves. I'm just helping them get to it.
right.
Yeah.
Because we have memories in our bodies, in different areas and different bodies that we have. We have more than just one. And so I hear what you're saying is that you're helping to repattern it within their system, within their whatever body that's working, their pain body, their emotional body, their etheric body. They're actually, our own bodies also retains memories.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're talking about when you're talking about working with energy?
Yeah. And so do you remember the herringbone chains from the 80s, the gold herringbone chains, like the thick ones, and how they would kink up?
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, man, you just lost this awesome necklace.
Yeah.
So when we have a wounded pattern, like the energy blocks, right? And we don't process it, and it just keeps going down, 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 down. When we procreate with that pattern in our body, it kinks the DNA, right? And so that baby is born with that kink. And so that is why, like when you really heal something deep within you and you repattern it on the cellular level, that's why they say you heal it 7 generations back and 7 generations forward.
Right.
And it's literally getting into the DNA. So I mean, and you could see it, like a baby being born and being raised outside of the geographic location, outside of the family, and it having those same wounded patterns and personality traits as the biological family.
Yes.
Right. So it's not something like, we're making up.
Right.
It's been proven scientifically over and over and over again.
It really has. And I think that the more that we can educate and help people, hi, Kathleen, then the better that we're going to help our society to change, because I know in my own family, that's what I saw in what was developing with my children and the patterns that I came from that I wanted to change. And slowly through that process, I was able to change in them when I was changing within myself. And that's we can do it. We have to be aware and awake and really need somebody that can really guide them through it if you're not really working on your inner self, your inner being. But you talk about following your heart, which is something that I talk a lot about as well. What do you mean by following your heart, listening to your heart?
Following your heart, like that alignment with your higher self and with the divine source, right? So it's not just following your feelings, but if you're in alignment, those feelings will guide you true, right? So, we can get stuck up here all the time, all day long, for months and months, years and years, lifetimes and lifetimes, and it won't get us anywhere. We'll spin our wheels till the cows come home. And trust me, I raised cows once. They don't come home on their own.
Oh my, we should have a whole conversation on that. I love cows.
I actually have a really funny story, and at the end, maybe I'll share it. So, following your heart, like, so if you think of the chakras in your spine, we're connected to the divine through the crown, right? And then it goes like this through our spine and roots us to the earth, comes out through our root chakra. But we're also very connected here at the heart. We have, the heart, which is our physical heart. And then we have the high heart, which is, again, that unconditional love, that spiritual source, so to speak, right here. And so when you're living from your heart space, you're living through that and from that connection. And if you follow that path without your head, right? Like, you can't go wrong.
Right. I love it. What I usually call that is the sacred heart. It's like it's the heart that's really deep within you behind your physical heart that
Mhm.
leads and guides us. And I think, or could you understand or agree that it's like when you're not following that, that's when you get those like tightening in your gut, it's feelings in your body that, is resistance to doing what is best and in right alignment to yourself and what is in best alignment to the good of what you're here to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel intuition, like
Mm-hmm.
when you're following that alignment and that intuitive source,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lightness. There is no resistance. And this is just energy. It's
Right.
just incredibly densely packed energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, if there's no resistance here, or
Mm-hmm.
wherever, mostly in our tummies is where we
Mm-hmm.
feel it the most.
Or children.
Um, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then the way is right. So, I mean, you can really listen to your body and the energy and the language of your body,
Mm-hmm.
um, in order to follow that. So, and it's oftentimes people just don't want to make that decision because it feels hard or big or scary or whatever, and then they'll just get stuck in everything just kind of knots up inside.
You're reminding me, I was watching this show about energy. And so they took water, and I know a lot of people have probably, I don't remember who wrote it, but it was the scientist that did
Masaru Emoto or is
Moto, yeah, who did the
yeah,
snowflakes, how the
yeah.
snowflakes were shaped by sound and energy and all of that. But I was watching this other one about how energy works in water. And so they had water in this vibrating thing, and they actually, by the way that the vibration would work, would go into some kind of pattern. And a lot of times it would depend on, like, there's certain sounds that things make. Like they took a sunflower, and every time they would turn that volume on or that energy on, it would create the pattern of the sunflower. But the interesting thing, and why I'm saying this, is that they did another one where they actually put cornstarch into the water, and it started making what you're calling that denseness that we have, where the blob would actually become a life. It would be
Mhm.
moving and forming, and it did the same thing. And it really was a good representation to me about how we, with our emotions, are always feeling energy, but we don't understand it. And we can get it all mucky and murky by having that starch in that water, that it's becoming this big blob. And that's what you're really feeling when you're like resisting and, that denseness in what's happening in your world.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
intriguing.
it is. And I've also seen it where they've had like these plates where they put, I think, on the speaker,
Uh-huh.
and they put like powders, like
Oh,
different colored powders, and they do the same thing where you can just watch it move with the vibration. Yeah, it's fascinating.
because I think that sometimes we don't take seriously enough the energy that's around us, or paying attention to the energy that's around us, or the energy that we're putting off to other people as well, because
Right.
other people are feeling our energy. And it's a real thing. It's something that we should be a lot more mindful of.
Yeah, and I think as far as the best representation that I can give, where people, I think 99% of the listeners would at least
Mhm.
know, is to think of the Disney movie Frozen,
Oh, yes. Hmm.
right? Because for me, that just brings the Musaro,
Hmm.
that guy who was brilliant. By the way, I'm not trying to be disrespectful of not remembering his name or pronouncing it right. But when she's in fear, right, and she has
Right.
stifled down her emotions, you see
Right.
the jaggedness
Hmm.
and the damage of it. But when she takes and claims her power and really lives it, I mean, there not only is that song awesome, and pick apart the lyrics here because it's really
Yes,
great,
it
but
is.
as she's like coming together and she's, building her castle, so to speak, it's
Hmm.
beautiful and symmetrical, and hello, there you are,
Yes, I hear you.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's that same way with our energy, whether we can shoot icicles out our hands or not.
Well, we are. We just don't see it like you said
Right.
with what she was doing for sure. Elsa. Oh, that was a big, when I was going through my biggest transformation, I had my granddaughter living with me and that was her favorite movie. And the two of us would just belt out those songs. And I was like, joy, 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 you know,
Mhm.
changed our energy for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so along your path, what do you think was some of the biggest hurdles that you had to break through?
Um, that is a really good question. Apart from being in my own way and my own crap,
That's a big
'cause
one.
I feel like those are like that's there for everyone.
Mhm.
Um, I would say it was kind of feeling alone because, the other people who you want to be on your side, right? Like your
Yeah,
family, they don't get it. They're just
right,
seeing the change,
right.
and change is often responded to out of fear, from
Mhm,
fear,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Which is another layer of ego. Like,
mhm.
whoa, this isn't on the chessboard. This is a new piece. I can't control it. It could be the best thing in the world, but I'm gonna claim it as the enemy. So, right. So I think that was a huge hurdle. A
It's
huge
a big hurdle, I think, for a lot of people because we know it's like the book, Someone Moved the Cheese. Who Moved the Cheese? It's about when you change, it's a good book, but it's about when you change something in your life, you're vibrating out and you're changing you. So now everybody around you is having to follow that. And so you do have to deal with the consequences of that. Some people will follow you and some people will not.
right. And you feel that, right? You feel that resistance. You feel that fear. And by the way, I didn't know how intuitive or the fact that I was an empath
Mhm.
until not even right away. And then that just blew my mind. Like, holy crap, are you telling me that it's real? Like, that's a real thing? Oh my gosh. And then it was this whole dance of, well, I really wasn't this shy kid. I just couldn't handle other people's crap. Right.
Exactly. That's what I had to learn. I was shut down. And I think a lot of us, and we talk a lot about this, a lot of us were shut down when we were kids because our family just didn't understand or they didn't deal with it themselves. There's so many reasons that that happens when we're kids. But in my dynamics, I was a truth sayer in the family, and that didn't go over well when I was like 4 years old and telling everybody what was going on. So, that shuts you down. And so you don't realize, like you said, you just don't realize.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big one. So as you've been going through your process and learning, what do you think is the biggest gift that you give to the people that you come in contact with?
I think the biggest gift is hope,
Mm,
right? Because that helps them really dip into their courage
mhm.
and trust themselves to take themselves where they want to go.
That's a big one. This is not a road traveled by the faint of heart.
No, I mean, I mean, working with me comes with a disclaimer because I say, okay, I promise you it's going to be great on the other side, but
Mhm,
there's going to be sticky bits and there's going to be
mhm.
things that are going to challenge you, and it's kind of like, are you committed to that? Because it's not bubblegum and roses on the way.
Oh, it's not.
It's not. And it can't be
No,
because then it wouldn't people wouldn't um question or doubt or run away from doing it if it was,
right. So
right?
funny that we're talking about this. I did an interview this morning and this is what we were talking about. It was about this specific issue where it's not an easy road, but it's one that when you go through it, that you learn so deeply that you're learning those lessons that you will never forget. I believe through the process that I've been through that I'll never in another lifetime have to learn this again. I will take this. It's so ingrained in my DNA now that it's just going to come with me for each life after this, and we're just going to keep building on it, because it's not an easy, it doesn't have to be hard. I think that, and what do you feel about this? I feel like we could make it harder than it actually is.
Well, my answer is yes, both.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And what you're speaking to, I refer to it as, it's like your inner wisdom. Like
Right.
once you claim those pieces of wisdom, that's where that soul retrieval work is. Hello, there's that piece. It's locked back in now. Now you have it. And I think some of it is supposed to be hard, right? So that you can prove to yourself the next time something shows up, oh, I recognize this. I got to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like it, but now I have these tools.
Right.
And so, every time you go into the transformative process, I don't feel like every time is the same.
Right.
I don't feel like every time is as intense as the first one or the third one, because sometimes the third one's more intense than the first one.
Right.
And rightfully so, because you got to trust the process, right? If that first one would have come up, you would have done it and then just disappeared and thought you were done. But, that's just not how it's supposed to be. And one thing that I've noticed in the last 8 years or so is that more people of the younger generations are coming into this work.
Yes, they are.
So being that they're starting out younger, it's not that so much that they have less, but it's not necessarily as intense or as entangled into other facets of their being as it is when you come to it in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s.
Yes. Yeah, I see that with the kids that I've been interacting with. They definitely already have such a great wisdom within them already at a young age, which is really beautiful to see. And they're open to learning. I kind of feel like the generation after me, they had a little better of a chance. Like in my generation, we were in the just be seen and not heard, like in the background, and women were not respected. They're still not, but there are a lot more than they were then. So I feel like that helped with the next generation coming up as well. Soften things a bit.
It definitely improved because my generation, the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're a girl, you can't do that.
Right.
Yeah, I can. If I want to, I can. You can't tell me I can't. But oh yeah, my mom was very much seen, not heard.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a tough one, but again, when I was talking today with this lady, it was about, that was a part of our process of learning. That was our process of really getting what we're here to do, to really understand the process of change, and that we are more than just this human body, that we are way more connected. And like, I don't even know. I told my family that I was a psychic medium, and I think they just looked at me like I was crazy and didn't believe me. And then they turned it off. It's like, go away. We don't even want to talk to you about it, which is so funny to me because they couldn't even acknowledge it.
Right. They just can't process it, right?
No,
Yeah.
can't process it. No. But you work with the divine feminine. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I work with the divine feminine, and I also work with the sacred masculine. My primary focus is on the divine feminine because even I work primarily with women. And, the way that the past several generations have been, like numerous generations have been, is we all get caught up in the masculine energy, not the sacred masculine energy, but the masculine energy of doing.
Yes.
Right. And the divine feminine energy is very much a being energy. It is active, but not in the same way.
So talk a little bit about what you mean. And first, let me shout out to everybody for being here. I'm watching your comments as I can. So if you have any questions, please put it in there, and we'll get to your questions as well. So I wanted to throw that in. That's what the comment section for. Okay, go ahead. Explain that a little more in depth, what you're talking about.
So we all have the divine feminine and the sacred masculine within us.
Right.
And you know, the staff with the two serpents intertwining around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is the divine feminine and the sacred masculine. And so they come up through the base, right? Your base chakra. And when you awaken them, boom, they kind of spark, right? Boom. And when you use them, they keep going up. And each time they connect at one of the main chakras, igniting that sacred marriage within again. And then around, and it just keeps doing until you're up here and you're out and connected, right? So the divine feminine is very much like the container, right? It is that being energy, that that goddess-like essence of being.
Yes.
Right? You're very much here. You're not out there. You're here. Doesn't matter what's going on out here. You're here. When you know, it's like everything's the mirror reflection, right? So if you're triggered, that's showing you something in here, right? That isn't in alignment. But that container, that sacred container of the divine feminine, is just very much like the womb space, right? It contracts when you need to go within, and you need to kind of, you know, power down, regenerate, and it expands when like chaos happens or you're processing something, right? But there's no holes in it, like it's yours, right? That is the divine feminine, and it's very much an energy of creation, right? Think of it, there are men who have or identify with the divine feminine energy. There are, but women have the capability of birthing, and that is the energetic creation coming to fruition. Not just like with babies, but when you're creating in your sacred container, the birthing process is literally like it's coming to completion. So the divine feminine is intuition. The divine feminine is cycles with the moon and the lunar energies. The divine feminine is about community and collaboration. And it's about passion and fire. And not just, I mean, yes, sexual passion and fire, that is very much there, but also that passion for life and what fuels you forward into your purpose. You know, that is the divine feminine space in which we all have, and has been, you know, shut down, right, for so long in so many of us.
Yes.
And not honored, even by ourselves. There's so much shame around a woman's cycle, and all of that. And so reclaiming that power, because that is what, as women, heightens our spiritual senses, when we are shedding our blood. Right? It's a very powerful time for introspection, and all of our intuitive senses are heightened during that time. And it's nothing that we should be ashamed of. Like,
Or
that's
feel like we're crazy. I mean, you brought me back to, because I had very, very difficult emotional times around that time for me. And I was always considered to be extreme, crazy. Well, it's just understanding the process. And if you're not taught how to understand that process or what's going on, or even the fact that when you're an empath, that it's going to even be more magnified.
Oh my gosh,
And
yes.
that's what we have to really be teaching our children, boys and girls. And it really goes back into really a big problem of body image issues, of self-respect issues, because we're felt to be, like there's something wrong with us. And I know it has gotten better over time. It definitely has gotten better, but we still have a long way to go.
Oh yeah, there's still a long way to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, in ancient traditions,
Mhm.
women during their moon time, and when you live, so think about it, any household with multiple women who
Yes.
are still on their natural cycle, your cycles sync.
Yes.
I mean, hello, the moon.
Exactly.
It controls the tides of the oceans on Earth. Why would it not have anything to do with your blood in your body? So, and they would go into like the Moon Lodge or the Red Tent, or I mean, there's other names for it,
Mhm.
and the community would support them.
Mhm.
You know, and they weren't expected to carry on daily duties. Um, because they were doing other things. They
Mhm.
were teaching and learning women's wisdom
Mhm.
from other women, like how do you birth babies? Where do birth babies come from? What do you do when this birth like all of that happened in the Moon Lodge. And while they were in there, because their spiritual senses were heightened so greatly, they would also dream and intuit for the community.
Mhm.
So when the elder women in the community would come out, at the end of the Moon Lodge,
Mhm.
they would then go into councils with the elder men of the community, and then they would commune about what needed to happen in the village. So, or for the tribe, or what have you. So, there's it's a source of power that it doesn't need to be feared,
Right.
you know, and but to be honored.
So what wisdom can you give to, I think, women who are experiencing that lack of support, that lack of really knowing how to embrace that, because we don't even know how to embrace that part of ourselves anymore. What are your tips on that?
My tips are to really do whatever you can in your schedule
Mhm.
to slow that schedule down,
Mhm.
so that you're not so you can lessen the outer sensitivities that
Mhm.
are going to really just kind of flare up your heightened senses, right? Because it's a time for, right, the container contracts.
Mhm.
That's you time. That's for you to have quiet time, more quiet activities, maybe a little extra solitude, right?
Mhm.
um, it's really not a great time to go out partying. It's more like I just want to, be at home and soak in the tub, or read a book, or put my feet up and watch a movie. But it's really taking care of yourself in those kinds of ways, um, and really helping, having those conversations with those you cohabitate with, um, when you're not in that predicament, but beforehand. You know what? This happens. This is why this happens. And during that time, I need to not blank, blank, blank. And this is what I need to do. And this is how you can help me. Right.
How do you think, I know that we don't do that. I was going to word that in 10 different directions, but the bottom line is we don't give ourselves permission to do that.
Well, it starts there, right? Like
Right.
you have to be willing to give it to yourself. And giving yourself permission to go there is the very first step, right?
I've
And
really felt
so
of it.
when
Yes.
I came into this work, like I had a full hysterectomy, so I don't have my moon time anymore. I
Mm.
have like, that energetic one, because even
Right.
when you don't bleed anymore, you still have those energetic times. Um, but one of my sisters, who also did, that piece of work, she has a son, and he's, I think, 10 or 11 years old now. And she does. She tells them, nope, this is mama's time, and these things don't happen during these few days because I need to take care of me. I'm okay. But, she gives, the 10-year-old as much information as he needs without giving him too much.
Right.
And she really models that care of herself, which, will trickle down. And so, yeah.
And I think that's great because you're teaching your children how to respect and honor that on either side. You're teaching the boys and how to honor and respect their wives when they come into that time of their life. And you're also teaching your daughters how to honor and respect their own bodies and themselves as well.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing that I think is happening more, but I know in my generation, and I would venture to say we're still into it to some extent, we're not teaching our children these things.
No.
We're not teaching them how to honor and respect each other as well as themselves.
Right, because we were reared to not respect ourselves.
Exactly.
To only respect our elders.
Exactly.
Right? So, that's deep work, and then modeling and teaching in order to, start that ripple effect to where it starts getting out there more and more.
Now, because another part of the problem, though, is we have this divine feminine within us, but we also have the masculine. And I think in the world that we live in, it's really hard sometimes to be able to mesh the two of them together because we are both, and it's okay to be both. How do you talk about that?
Well, actually, over the last couple of years, I have been really watching myself, and I notice when I'm in certain energies. And not fighting against that is really powerful. As human beings, we're here to be human beings, not human doings. Right? So when you're in overactive doing mode, your masculine is out of balance, right? And your feminine is totally being ignored. So, of course, we all have to do things. We all have to have, that conscious, inspired action, right? Those action steps.
Right.
That are procreative, that are protective, that provide. That is the sacred masculine. And the divine feminine is, that beingness, that holding, that nurturing, the creation, right? Things coming through. And that can be out of balance too. I mean, if you're always with your head in the spiritual realm and you're bringing in information, but you're not bringing it all the way through, then the divine feminine is out of balance.
Right.
So it's always kind of checking yourself, if you have something going on in your world and you have, this is how this is what is working for me. Because I am a recovering perfectionist doer. I will probably always be in the program.
I'm still in the program. In fact, Susan B., who's on here, just scolded me the other day about, you don't have to be a perfectionist. I'm working on it.
So, and this has really been working for me. Like I have, my list of, hey, when I'm in my feminine flow, these are my creative projects.
Right.
And I know when I'm in that energy.
Right.
And so when I'm in that energy, I'm paying attention to one of those creative projects. Right. And what I have to be aware of is when, they have my attention, and I'm a visionary. So what that means is I get great ideas all the time. But sometimes they come in so fast, and then I just want to work on all of them, and then nothing really gets done. Right. So that's out of balance.
Right.
So when I'm in that creative feminine flow, I'm working on one of those creative projects. If other information comes in, I make a list and I leave it there. Right. And when, say there's other things going on in the world, hubby and son come home from work and they're kind of making some noise, not the greatest time for me to be in my creative flow. But I have lots of tasky things that need to get done. So, short attention spans here and there, I can actually, be part of a conversation while that's going on. Perfect time for that. But then there's recognizing the time where, okay, this is enough. It's time to process and defragment this.
Yes.
Right. And that's where that self-care comes in, and loving myself enough to give myself permission to not produce like a machine, because I'm not a machine. I'm a human being.
And that's an important thing, because especially in our society today, and I know I talk a lot about this, is that we're just barraged with so much information, so many things we have to do. Our list can be 10 miles long and we never get to the bottom of the list. It seems like it always just stays 10 miles long. And it's about giving ourselves that permission. I think that's the biggest takeaway of this whole conversation, is permission to be able to be who you are and also keep balance within your life.
Yeah, and there are times where it really feels absolutely counterintuitive and unrealistic to take even 10 minutes to
Mm-hmm.
go shut yourself in a room and just be for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But that 10 minutes can be the biggest investment in your energy source that is going to help carry you through,
Mm-hmm.
where you're really not losing that 10 minutes. That 10 minutes is giving you 2 hours, 3
Exactly.
hours.
Exactly. And my favorite analogy is the putting the mask on yourself before you put it on whoever's next to you on a plane. You've got to do the healing within, so you have the energy to heal the people that are around you or help the people that are around you.
Yeah.
It's not selfish, and it's not self-centered. It's not any of those things. It's just a matter of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
You're depleted and tired, if you're depleted and frustrated, then you're not going to be able to give. You're not going to be able to be of full presence and help to somebody that may be in your life.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, you can't have tea with an empty kettle.
perfect. Exactly. You cannot. But I feel like there's a struggle with that still.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I mean, there's that unrealistic, well, I don't see. Well, of course you don't see. You haven't given yourself permission to try it or to live it or be it or give yourself that, because you've never seen anybody properly do that without them being selfish. Like,
well,
you've
that
not
was a
had that
big one.
healthy role model.
Could you Could you imagine? That's a big one. I mean, even in
You.
marriages that I've had, I was selfish if I was doing something. Yeah, we won't go there. Anyway, what are some tools or some maybe tips that people can think about when they're getting into that rut of, I need to do more, I'm not doing enough, I need to conquer, to be able to pull back and say, okay, I need a timeout. This is just a timeout.
You just listed like so many things. Okay, so I would
I'm good at that.
start by just having, inviting them to own the fact and sit with, I am enough.
Mm-hmm. Big one.
I am good. I
Mm-hmm.
am good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I am loved. I am lovable, right? You
Mhm.
don't need to be needed to be good or to be loved. You just simply need to be.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, and yet that's for some, that's a much longer, harder journey than others.
That's very true.
7 generations back, I mean, it's coming from somewhere.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because we are, again, it's going back to that learned behavior. That's not only something we learned in this life, but in our DNA. And
Right.
there's studies and proof that shows that we have muscle, or that DNA memory, and it stays with us. So it is being able to go back and lovingly, that's one of the things that I tell people, is to sit in that quiet for a few minutes, just to breathe into your heart space, your sacred heart, and ask, what is the most loving thing for me to do?
Right. And if you wouldn't do it for your daughter, you wouldn't do it for your son or your best friend, then why would you do it to you?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I hope that that's it's a big subject. I think the divine feminine is more of a topic that's gaining more momentum.
Mhm.
But it really is something that needs to be spoken about, because I think that we've lost that within ourselves, is claiming and owning that divine feminine. A lot of it is like, we've got these trials going on with, there's a couple of them with raping women, and they're just because they didn't say something, or, we won't go into it. But anyway, it's all about shaming and belittling women, and yet we're not standing as a force together to say, no, this is not right. This is, we have to stand within our power and own our power. We can't be ashamed of our power because we're a woman.
Right. And rape is a horrible, horrible thing.
Mhm.
And when you distill the horror from it,
Mhm.
it's literally someone asserting their power and will over
Oh,
another.
mhm. Mhm.
So it doesn't matter if the woman says no or stop, or, hey, is her mouth covered? Because, she might not be saying it verbally, but I guarantee the body language is there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not about that. You're right. It's all about the control, but it's all about us being able to own our own power, and to be able to, like, body shaming, body images. There's like Adele, she had lost weight, and for some reason it became a big scandal because she had lost weight. How does that have anything to do with her music? I know it's like kind of off topic, but that's a part of us going back into and claiming that we have the power as women to be whole and to be a force to be reckoned with, and still be creators of life.
Yes. And something very powerful about what you said was, but then everybody, blah, blah, blah. But that's judgment and expectations of others,
But
right?
we
We
believe.
don't have to accept them.
Exactly, and that's the key. And she didn't, but a lot of us do. A lot of us feel like when that starts happening, because of the struggle and the control that goes on, that we don't stand into our power and own our power.
Right. Right. I mean, we're not all supposed to have the same body type or the same body shape.
No.
I mean, it would be
No.
boring. I mean, think about it. Okay. Teenage girls, if you're watching this, think about it this way. Okay. Do you want to go to a high school where there's uniforms and you only get to wear one or two combinations every single day? No. Why? Personal expression,
Yeah.
identity,
Hmm.
right? We are human beings. We're not supposed to be conformed and all one, right? Like the same body type, the same body color, the same, hair color. One isn't better than the other. We're just different, and that's perfect for us. So, I'm not saying I'm against uniforms, because I know that they're there for a very good reason, but you take that concept and you apply it to body shape, and
Yeah.
that right there, that's, if they look at it that way, mind blowing, right?
That should be a subject in school too, quite frankly. But you're right. We really have to be able to be at peace with ourselves, though, with that,
Mhm.
which takes a lot of work, especially in our society. But I feel like that change is happening in society. I feel like there's more that people are really starting to take notice of, that we don't have to be cookie cutters. We don't have to be this perfect Everybody's different. Everybody's beautiful in their own way. But we as women need to be able to control and own who we are as a woman and
Mhm.
not allow people to take our power away.
Right. Or
That's
live under their expectations, act from their expectations. No, I mean, it goes back to, is there resistance? Does
yeah,
it feel good?
exactly. What are some of the myths that you think happen in the divine feminine?
Um, I don't know. Good question. I mean, okay, it's not a religion,
Mm-hmm.
right? Religion and spirituality are not the same,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not in competition with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Spirituality is very much a personal relationship, and it's all in here,
Yes.
right? Religion is more community based, and you're following a dogma,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can be spiritual and religious. You can be religious and spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your personal prayer time, you're being spiritual. Right. So I think that that would be a myth. I don't think I've really like faced anything where somebody's come up to me and I'm like, that is absolutely not true.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think just kind of reflecting on, what I've seen like in movies or whatever, is the divine feminine nature is not religious, and it
Mm-hmm.
is not religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's an energy.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of what we do in this world is not in religion. I don't know. Okay, I can't say that here, but it's not about religion. It's about us connecting back to who we really are. It's
Mhm.
having that experience of, and I think that's, I mean, we could have a whole religious conversation, which has already happened today, and a lot of you people heard about the religious conversation from this morning. But there's more to life than the control that religions put on us. And if we can just experience and explore our own humanness and how we blend and connect with our soul, then that's what it's all about. We
Mhm.
set the rules to that. We don't let others set the rules for us because it's our experience here.
Right.
Yeah, that's really important. What is one golden nugget, one tip, one takeaway that you would want people to know or to remember?
Oh boy, that's a hard question, JoAnne. We just like talked about 12 different things. How am I supposed to pull one gold nugget out of that?
Oh, no. Well, you've got to, I know you come up with some of those.
um, I would say like the golden nugget is really like at the end of the day,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what anyone else or anything else is saying or thinking towards you.
Mhm.
It's really just like close your eyes, tap into that space and what feels right to you.
Right.
It may not always be the easiest. It might not always be the hardest.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's the simplest thing that's staring you in the face and you're just like, duh, I knew that. Right? But when you really just like close everything out and you just tap into here,
Right.
that's the truth, right? That's you, and that's what matters.
See, that was a perfect golden nugget. Absolutely perfect. Because that is really what it's all about. It's tapping into your sacred heart and trusting and honoring that above all else and
Mhm.
nothing else. Is that's what's going to lead you to make the best and right decisions for you.
Yeah.
It's when we go up here or we analyze, that's when we're going to,
Yeah.
who knows what we're going to do or what decisions we're going to make. So yeah, it's that perfect. I,
Yeah.
if you, what is the thing in the world that you wanted to really make the biggest change of?
Well, I think it would be, like what we've talked about today and what it comes down to, what I help people do. And that is to really feel into this space within themselves
Mhm,
and to trust that
mhm,
and live from that truth.
mhm,
Really, truly, if there was more of that,
mhm.
there would be more peace and more learning and more growth, more tolerance, more of all the good stuff and less of the strife and the chaos,
Yes.
right? That
Mhm,
is hurtful,
mhm.
because we do need chaos to a certain point. Like, if chaos at certain levels didn't happen, then the need for change and transformation would never show itself, right? So you need some of it, but the hurtful and the hate and the, the moving from the fear, that would just be lessened the more all of us do more of this.
And all we can really be is concerned about what's happening in our world. So that's where the chaos and the conflict comes. It's from the outer. All we can be really concerned about and control is what is within us. And if we're doing that, as you said, it's the energy that we're vibrating out, and it's a ripple effect that's changing the entire world. So I agree with you. We do need to have the dualities. That's how we learn. So they're important. How can people get a hold of you?
Um, wisdomawakens.com is my website, and I have a Facebook page, Wisdom Awakens.
Mhm.
Um, and I also have a private Facebook group for women. It's Feminine Wisdom Keepers, and it is a private group for the awakened woman.
Awesome.
So in there, we get to have, because it's more private and not so public, we get to have more conversations and all of that good stuff. And I'm really excited that last year is over and I get to breathe new life into my group.
Well, good. I will
Yeah.
post in the information how to get a hold of you. So that will be posted, but people can hear it too.
Hmm.
We all learn from more than one sensory. So,
Yeah, and so that book, I will get the name of that
okay.
book I've mentioned. It's something about your style statement.
Okay.
And I'm literally picturing the cover. It's like this big, beautiful, like meaty book that was just easy to go through. Like, I went through it in a day, and
Wow.
it was so fun
Mm,
and it was very powerful. But I'll get the actual title of it and the authors, and
okay.
I'll put it in there.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. I didn't see any questions, so I'm looking through really fast to see if there was any. I did like Kathleen, the sign when we were talking about the snake going up the feminine and the divine masculine, the signs of the Mercury medicine. I know a little bit about that, which you probably know from your shamanic work.
Yeah, and there's actually a Latin word for that symbol, and I can never remember it.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time to share with us today and
Well,
talking
thank
with
you
us
for
about the
having
divine
me.
feminine. It was fun. And if you guys have any more questions, please put it in the chat. And I do check it. So we'll keep going that way too. And everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.